Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Asaf Ramarowski, the Executive Director of ASMIA, and it's my pleasure to once again welcome you to our webinar series. This afternoon, we have the privilege and opportunity to hear from our good friend, Dr. Robert Rabil. Robert has been a professor of political science at FAU and is a prolific scholar and expert on Lebanon and Syria. He has been a prolific researcher and writer on a lot of these topics, and obviously Lebanon is going through a great deal of change these days as the Middle East at large. And Robert is the man to hear from on a lot of these changes that we are now experiencing. Especially post the collapse of the Assad regime, and of course, post, in many ways, post the the attack of Israel on Hezbollah's leadership, and as Hezbollah is now trying to rebuild itself, what this all means for Lebanon's stability at large and where Lebanon is going. Robert will talk for about a half hour, then we'll go into Q&A. Q&A will be via the chat, and so all you have to do is type in your question via the chat itself. I will also make a plug. Our upcoming conference is going to be at the end of October, early November in Washington. We hope to see many of you there. Robert will be speaking at the conference about these very topics as part of a larger roundtable on Lebanon and Syria these days. So if you like what you hear today, feel free to come and join us. We'd love to see you in person in Washington. So really, without further ado, Robert, thank you for joining us, and the virtual floor is now yours.
Thank you, Asaf. Really, it's a pleasure and an honor to be with you. You know, you are, as a matter of fact, and the organizations that I belong to, it's in my heart and soul. And I really, kudo for you and kudo for all the work you do. And we need an organization like you really to bring balance to Middle East studies. Now, on this point, I'm going to be speaking about Lebanon, Hezbollah. And again, because I received many questions why I put the Ben Gurion moment. Well, I put the Ben Gurion moment really to tell the Lebanese and to tell those who are with Lebanon that really, if you want to do something, I'm giving you a pointer. And the pointer is, what did Ben Gurion do at a very critical time in Israel history? And what he did is that mainly in June 1948, he took a decision. He said, listen, all the armed forces, the militia, they have to be dissolved, and all the arms is going to be with the IDF, with Israel Defense Forces. Now you have the Altalena ship came with weapons to the Irgun. And again, you had Begin on it. And he gave an order, listen, the arms should be only confined to the newly declared state of Israel. I'm not going to allow two armies. It's only one army. Now, again, you have a kind of a conflict. And then he ordered, to bomb the ship. And the point is, after he bombed it, Begin said, listen, I don't want to make any problem, and I don't want to raise, a hand against a brother, and he surrendered. So why I mention this? That was a very crucial moment in Israel history. And more so, as a matter of fact, Israel at the time was through, it was done in June 1948, after he declared, the independence of the Israeli state and going through a war. So this is why I am telling Lebanon and, the people of Lebanon, and especially a message to Hezbollah, listen, Lebanon cannot have two armies. And Lebanon today is facing really a critical question. And it is at a critical juncture in that they have to decide whether they would be merely one sovereign state, one army, or they are going to stay as a farm. And I say it bluntly, Lebanon has acted as a farm for quite some time. And now Israel, and let me say this and let me amplify this, because many in Lebanon has criticized me. I go on Arabic TV and on Israeli TV as well, and I mentioned that, listen, so let me take you back and I will highlight a few things. Lebanon, during the French mandate and Palestine under the British mandate, the Jews, the Palestinian Jews and the Lebanese, they did not have any problem. And as a matter of fact, you have a good relationship between the Christian and the Israelis. In the 1936, as a matter of fact, President Iddi of Lebanon, he supported the Peel Commission. In 1946, merely the Maronite Church signed an agreement with the Jewish Agency. Now, in 1948, thanks, to certain changes, in the politics of Lebanon, Lebanon participated in the war against Israel, but mainly it was symbolic and half-hearted. But then in the 1950, with Nasser, and especially in 1958, really, when the regime in Lebanon was threatened by the Nasserid and by the all leftists and Marxists, really, I can tell you this, and I submitted a paper to the Journal of Asmiya, re-evaluating the relationship between Israel and Lebanon. At the time, it was Israel that helped Lebanon. Israel that gave the President Shamoun at the time weapon and allowed, soldiers from Jordan and Iraq to go and help him. And of course, Israel played a role in kind of giving a lot of information, apprising the Marines who landed in Lebanon and diffused the crisis. Of course, they did not resolve the crisis, but diffused the crisis. And in the 1960, what happened? Somehow, in 1968, Israel attacked or bombed the airport. And why is that? That was in retaliation for the PLO and others who really made made Lebanon, and especially southern Lebanon, made it a hub of terrorism. Listen, and again, Nasser has imposed on Lebanon the Cairo Agreement, whereby, really the PLO kind of created a state within a state. So here again, and I'm doing this, and I am reliving this. Israel gave not one warning to Lebanon. Tell them, listen, what are you doing? What are you doing? And then the Lebanese government at the time, the prime minister, Yafi, he said, listen, these are the Fidaiyin, we are supporting them. And then really you had a kind of a split in the country, broadly speaking, the Christian camp and the pan-Arabist Marxist and the PLO camp. And in 1975, you have the war. And I can tell you this now, really, whereas, some would say, listen, Israel is a hegemonic country. Israel has design over Lebanon. Israel has colonial ambitions in Lebanon. I tell them absolutely not. In 1949, Israel withdrew from Lebanon because it acquired during the war then, after Lebanon attacked Israel, it seized certain villages. But after signing the armistice agreement, Israel withdrew. Really. So here, when they say, Israel had a design, they said, no, they did withdraw in 1949. They helped Lebanon in the 1950s. And in the 1970s, as a matter of fact, really now I am going, reading Kimchi, reading Begin, reading Rabin's. And of course, I did some interview with former Mossad officials. And again, I know because at the time, at a very early age, I served on all frontline. I volunteered for the Red Cross. So I know exactly what happened. And it was, as a matter of fact, the Christian who helped and other people who asked the help for the Israeli. Really. And what's the problem now? It's not only the problem, of the Palestinian. Yet the Palestinian were a big problem, but the weak national identity of Lebanon. Really, since the establishment of Lebanon, you have, some Christian look, for example, you have certain aspiration. The Muslims have certain aspiration. But again, what happened is that by the 1950s and 60s and 70s, you have such a force of leftists, of pan-Arabists. So I don't want to think about Israel. Mainly, they supported the Palestinian question. And the Palestinian question, I can tell you this because I lived it there. The Palestinian question was about liberating Jerusalem from a Christian town north of Lebanon, north of Beirut, Juni. So really, and what happened was a tragedy. Now, again, Israel supported the Christians. And in 1983, May, you have the May 17 agreement. And here I am skipping a lot of things, but I'm highlighting very important points. Israel and Lebanon, they signed the May 17 agreement, and it was the closer for a peace treaty between the two. And what Lebanon did after a while, they abrogated it. It divided the border. Israel said, listen, we are going to respect you. Lebanon also said, we are going to respect you. More than that, we're going to work together on cultural things, other things. So mainly, by abrogating this, it happened, terrible, terrible time when Hezbollah now we started to become a power in Lebanon. And I can tell you this, and I say it now, as I said it before, Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Houthi, and all others, these are Islamist, radical Islamist organization. They cannot reconcile themselves ideologically with the concept or with the notion or with the reality that you have a state for the Jewish people. And again, Hezbollah, thanks to Syria and thanks to Iran, it built a state within a state. It built a state within a state. And what they did, as a matter of fact, Israel withdrew in 2000, again, Israel withdrew in 2000, but still, Iran, as a matter of fact, via Hezbollah and creating the axis of resistance, Iran had the border with Israel. And Hezbollah, as a matter of fact, posed a significant threat to Israel. So that many Lebanese, I would say some Lebanese, absolutely, including us, what are you doing? What are you doing, really? And do you think Israel is going to let go? Now, the 2006 war took place, and I was in Lebanon myself with my wife and son, and I don't want to go further there, but I was researching, and I saw the war, and the war ended, I would say, broadly speaking, in an inconclusive way. But more so, as a matter of fact, the Lebanese government took a decision, and that decision was translated into a United Nations Security Council, 1701, mainly the disarming of all militia, period, really, and really, and ending the conflict. Now, what happened to United Nations Security Resolution 1559? Again, about the armed forces of Lebanon imposing their authority. What happened to 1701? Really, nothing happened. And Hezbollah again building up its arsenal of weapons, drones, missiles. And more so, as a matter of fact, Hezbollah, turned its weapon inside Lebanon, from the prime ministers to certain activists to certain mainly journalists, the head of the Al-Nahar newspaper, all of them were assassinated by Hezbollah. So when we speak about Hezbollah and those who speak about, listen, it's resistance, what kind of a resistance is this? It wasn't resistance. It was absolutely an Iranian Hezbollah takeover of Lebanon and creating an axis of resistance, so-called axis of resistance, mainly against the Israeli, but not only against the Israeli, against all those who believe that the decision of peace and war should remain with the Lebanese government. And the Lebanese government, as a matter of fact, early on does not want to be part of the Arab-Israeli conflict. And more so, as a matter of fact, as I'm going to argue, and as I argued, and now it's going to be, in an article, really, Israel had no colonial or any ambitions in Lebanon, no design for Lebanon. They want to have peace. And what happened with Hezbollah now? They posed, a huge sword of Damocles, on top of them, especially in the north. And again, what happened now during the war? What gave Hezbollah the right to go ahead and launch a war, calling it, well, it's a supportive war of Hamas. Hamas did something barbaric to Israel, something bad, and there should be really no place for Hamas anywhere. And I myself, I am of the opinion, even before October 7, before that terrible barbaric, attack, I really believe that no non-state actor, whether Islamist or non-Islamist, but especially Islamist, they have to have a role in dictating anything, whether domestic politics or regional politics. So again, Hamas has to be gone, Hezbollah has to be gone, or they need to transition, for example, in Lebanon to complete what? To completely a political role. Now, what's happening? Israel, after almost a year, and today, as a matter of fact, this is the day a year ago when Israel used the pager. Listen, after 2006, Israel really looked at Hezbollah now with a sober eye, and they know now they have to face that threat. And that threat now is no minimal threat. It's a huge threat. And again, they waited 1 year, and Hezbollah kept firing rocket at Israel. So they did not expect that Israel is gonna, again go and really secure, the stability of the northern border, and of course secure the Israelis that fled. Now, again, this is where Israel went in. And let me say this, and that's very important to say because I said it, and let me say it again here, and I said it before, even when I was attacked by many on the Arab TV channel. I think that Lebanon should thank Israel first merely for expelling the PLO in Lebanon when Arafat was a kingmaker, really, in 1982. And now here for Israel to go ahead and dealing a severe blow for Hezbollah. The Lebanese should thank Israel, should not go against Israel. And I know a good number of them, they don't say it out loud. But really, how could any party in Lebanon, how could anyone in Lebanon could have done that? Only one country was able to do that. Only one country that went and did it, and that's Israel. And kudos for Israel. From my perspective, as a matter of fact, Israel did twice, as a matter of fact, the job that Lebanese should have been done. And now Lebanon is at the critical juncture. The critical juncture is that, based on the ceasefire that took place in November of last year, mainly Hezbollah is going to withdraw, and you are going to have implementation of 1701. Now, you have a new president and you have a new prime minister, and already in their statement, they said, well, only the weapons should be only confined to Lebanese authorities. Now, here, let me tell you what happened, because it's extremely important what happened, and I'll speak for another 5 or 7, 8 minutes. What's happening today, as a matter of fact, you have an agreement. The cabinet, in Lebanon, they issued a statement, and the president issued a statement that, listen, the arms only should belong to the Lebanese government, to the armed forces, and Hezbollah has to surrender to give up its weapons. Now, you have now certain talks, and indeed Hezbollah, when it comes to the south of the Litani River, broadly speaking, he is cooperating with the government. Now, after a meeting on September 5, the commander of the armed forces had a plan, as the plans that they spoke about in the cabinet minister meeting on August 5 and August 7. Now, the plan is now, the first, part of the plan is for Hezbollah to surrender or to give up its weapons, and for the Lebanese armed forces to impose its authority south of the Litani River. You are talking 30 to 40 kilometer, 30 to 40 kilometer all the way down to the border of Israel. And here I would say, Hezbollah is kind of cooperating. But the statement, they are coming from Hezbollah. For example, Rad, the leader of the political, the parliamentarian, he said, listen, we are not going to give up our weapons. And he said it, as a matter of fact, and he amplified it. He said, listen, go ahead and go tile the ocean. That's an Arabic saying. They say, go and ballit al-bahr, go tile the ocean, really. And you have Naim Qasim now. Naim Qasim, the Secretary General of Hezbollah. And he has said it, not only one time, repeatedly, that said, listen, what kind of a strategy you are going to have. Mainly, he linked, as a matter of fact, the giving up Hezbollah's weapon to Israel withdrawal from Lebanon. And Israel say, how I'm going to withdraw if you are going to have weapons in the arm of Hezbollah? And the Lebanese government said, listen, you signed on the ceasefire. You have United Nations security resolutions that call for you mainly to surrender your weapon, to give up its weapon. So here mainly, I think, and this is what I worry. Why? Because what happened in the September 5, yes, you have the decision, and somehow the Hezbollah, it's giving, I would say, mixed messages. But one message is clear, and which I see it, is that some of them, or I don't know the extent to which, but I know that they are working with the Lebanese armed forces. But now you have north of the Litani, which is extremely important. And this is where, as a matter of fact, the plan, or the army plan, did not put a schedule of time. So mainly it's open. And this is where I got worried. And this is where I am concerned. And this is why, as a matter of fact, Asaf, when I spoke with you, I said, listen, this is the Ben Gurion moment. You cannot, as a matter of fact, say, listen, okay, let's, work it out, Why? Because Hezbollah's leaders, as a matter of fact, Naim Qasim and others, they are saying, listen, the cabinet decision, and that they are calling for Hezbollah to surrender its arm is not constitutional. And why is that? Because they believe, listen, we have a fact here, we have a coexistence, we have a national pact, and in order for this really to be effective, you are going to have an agreement, a consensus among all the sects in Lebanon. Why? Because Lebanon is a confessional country, and it distributes its power along religious lines. So here, from their perspective, what's happening is unconstitutional, and they say, listen, if you don't have the agreement or the consensus, the sanctions of the Shia community, listen, what you are doing is not constitutional. So we have, as a matter of fact, there is challenges for the Lebanese government. But again, the Lebanese government, as I mentioned, it has a chance. And I said it early on in my talk, and I say it, call a spade a spade. For me now, it's black and white. Forget the nuances. And here, let me mention something that Tom Barak, the envoy, the presidential envoy, and the current ambassador, the American ambassador to Syria said. And he said it really rightly. Really, I fully agreed with him. He said, listen, in an interview with a Lebanese TV station, he said the political culture of Lebanon is built on really deny, deter, and deflect. And I said, listen, since I lived in Lebanon and I served in Lebanon, I left Lebanon in 1984 myself. I joined the Red Cross when I was 14 years old. I served on most of the front lines in Lebanon. And I knew, and of course, my studies here and overseas about the Middle East, I know it's a political culture that really, it denies, it deflects, and it's really, you have certain sectarian and certain self-interest. And I would say it broadly again, you have corruption in Lebanon deep. But now I say, listen, you have a chance. You have United States going to help you. You have the EU is going to help you. Israel will withdraw from Lebanon. If you are not going to withdraw, really, if you are not going to do that, Israel is not going to withdraw. So mainly you have a chance now of a peaceful Middle East. You don't want to do peace with Israel, you go ahead and revisit the armistice agreement. In the armistice agreement, you signed to it. Mainly you say you are not going to threaten Israel, and Israel is not going to threaten you. And again, Israel will respect your sovereignty, and you will respect the sovereignty of Israel. So mainly the Lebanese, they have now a great chance, a great opportunity. And if they're going to miss the opportunity, let me repeat that again. It's going to be a farm. And then it's not going to be a farm like a regular farm. It's going to be a damned farm, a damn bad farm, smelling, and it's a smell. It's going to be, really exuding a huge smell for miles. And this is the opportunity now. And again, now the United States is looking at, a new regional order in the Middle East. And here, before I forget, let me mention this when it comes to Israel, because it's extremely, extremely important. As I mentioned to you, Israel played a role in expelling the PLO. When the PLO, they acted as kingmakers in Lebanon and relieved the Lebanese, and Israel today, again, not too long ago, they dealt a severe blow of Hezbollah, or Hezbollah would have controlled and trampled on Lebanese, regardless of their ethnic or religious background, period. That was an Iranian satellite, and in the most terrible form. But also, what did Israel do? Other than changing, in Lebanon, Israel paved the way, for the Assad regime to go. And yes, you have this guy Al-Shara'a now, formerly a Salafi jihadi, formerly known as Al-Julani, Muhammad Al-Julani. But now you have an opportunity. I know, and I can answer a question now. I know you have a lot of challenges, and this regime thus far has done terribly, especially vis-a-vis the minorities, but now they are saying we are open, we would like equality, but still you have a lot of questions. But what I have to say here, and what I emphasize here, is Israel is the country that generated a radical transformation in the region. And Israel was the only country that was able to generate this transformation. It's a transformation, is a good hope for Syria, for Lebanon, and Hamas, and the Palestinians, if they get rid of Hamas, mainly to have a new Middle East, really. Because these powers, as a matter of fact, they inflicted so much damage, really, on Lebanese, on the Palestinian, on the Syrian, on the Iraqis, on the Yemenis today. This non-state actor, this Islamist actor, they have been, and of course, let's not forget the Iraqi regime, and the Syrian regime under the Baas Party. The Baas Party, the most strident Arab nationalist party that did not even accept the non-Arab, the Kurds or non-Arab. Only, you are Arab if you speak Arabic, and if you say, well, I speak Arabic, but no other language, still you are Arabic and you have to act as an Arab. So mainly, Israel now has made a radical and most needed transformation in the region, really. really, and the people of the region, they have a chance now. They have an opportunity. The Syrian have an opportunity. The Lebanese have an opportunity. The Palestinian have an opportunity, really. And I know despite all the tragedies that we see, but they have an opportunity now they did not have before. So this is why I hope that, and this is why, Asaf, thank you for, working together regarding this great title, which mainly made many people upset. And let me tell you this, when I want to pause this recording, this lecture, I'm going to make tons of people upset, including and especially in Lebanon. Yes, it's a Ben Gurion moment. Look at history. Look at what your neighbor did. Look at what Ben Gurion took, this very paramount, important decision at a critical juncture in Israel history. He said, listen, we don't need two armies. We have one army, one state. And I hope the Lebanese government, whatever challenges it's going to face, and it's going to face the challenges because now Hezbollah is trying probably to rehabilitate itself. They see a lot of changes now in the region, and I know, you have a good number of them really, from their statement, north of the Litani and probably some places south of the Litani, they are not still ready to surrender their weapons. So I'm telling the Lebanese government mainly and to the Syrian government, really, listen, now is your chance to become really sovereign and good state for all the people and to enjoy really a peaceful life, stable life within Lebanon, within Syria, and outside, including with Israel. And I hope they take this opportunity. And my message for Lebanon is, listen, this is an opportunity of a lifetime. And Israel is not going to save you again. It's not going to save you again. How many times is going to save you? It's not going to save you again. So if you meet the challenges, don't go ahead and don't deny and don't detour and don't deflect. This is the moment of truth. And at this point, I thank you. And I will be more than happy to take questions. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, thank you for all of that, Robert, and for the passion and for expressing all of this. Both Alex and I have a lot of questions before we go into the audience, but let me take the prerogative. I'll ask the first question. You started talking about obviously the Palestinian factions and whatnot. We've seen over the past few weeks now a lot of attempts to disarm El Hiwa and Nahar el Bard and all these areas where we've seen a great deal of Palestinian activism. And there were remarks that were coming out about potentially allowing the change of status of Arab Palestinians in Lebanon. This is a question obviously that relates to the dynamic inside of the Israeli-Palestinian issue regarding Palestinians at large. But when it comes to Lebanon, is there a chance in your mind that there will be a movement as far as changing their status there? And obviously that would be helpful as a modality of removing the refugee badge in order to kind of move along as far as change and whatnot. Can Lebanon become a model for the Arab Palestinian population in those areas, or are there still hotbed issues that really are not going to change?
All right, I can tell you what's happening today and what I think is going to happen. The Lebanese government, as a matter of fact, is undertaking negotiation with the Palestinian, similar with Hezbollah, for the Palestinian and all their, mainly Hamas and the PLO and others, mainly to surrender their weapons. And they started to do that, but you had some problems in Lebanon, and now they are kind of on a pause. But already, the Palestinian came forward and they said, listen, we're going to speak about it. And the leadership, especially of the PLO, mainly of Mahmoud Abbas, they said, okay, listen, we are ready to surrender our weapon. This did not happen yet. So from that side, the PLO mainly, and I wouldn't speak much about Hamas, because Hamas, what happened recently, and thanks to Hezbollah, as a matter of fact, Hamas now has, I would say, a big influence in the refugee camp, especially in the biggest one, in Ain al-Hilwi, in the south of Lebanon. But really, the Lebanese government is based on its statement, based on what's trying to do, is really, for the PLO, mainly the Palestinian in the camp, to give up their weapons. This is one thing. The second thing, the Palestinian, and this is sad, really sad. And and when I did my book on the Syrian refugees, in Lebanon, and again, part in Syria, but mainly the book, on the Syrian refugees. Again, of course, I know about the Palestinian refugee in Lebanon. The Palestinian refugee in Lebanon, sadly, they are really kind of, I would say the Lebanese government could do more somehow to help their status. And I'll tell you why. The Palestinian refugees, they cannot work in many professions in Lebanon. And they are mainly confined to the refugee camp. For example, I spoke about the largest refugee camp in Lebanon, Ain al-Hilwi. Mainly in 1948, in 1949, that was for 4,000 to 5,000 people. Now it is over 60 to 70,000 people. And mainly, they live on top of each other, and they are not allowed, many professions or to pursue certain professions, in Lebanon. So this is, again, as a matter of fact, is a responsibility for the Lebanese. Other thing I would say, you have a good number of Palestinian refugees. At one time, their number was close to 400,000. Now, I think their number is around 250,000. So you have a number of them, they are left. But here, this is where I have an issue now. And this is what Lebanese government and some in Lebanon, they have an issue. The PLO, through it's now conducting, and Hamas, listen, the leadership of Hamas before October 7, they were in Lebanon.
Sure.
Really, they speak with the Lebanese government, but mainly the PLO and Hamas, they agree on one thing, is that, listen, you are a refugee and you are going to stay a refugee, you are going to go back home. So mainly they are telling them, really, they are telling them things that what we see, does not align with the realities that's happening. That, listen, you are... You are our slogan. You are our people. You are refugees. If you are not a refugee, how we are going to go back? So mainly they are feeding them this, and they are allowing them for them mainly to remain as refugees. And their life in Lebanon is awful. Again, based on my research, again, Asaf, and this is where the Lebanese government is paying attention, and I wanted to pay attention. Listen, Al-Julani forces, this is my research, Salafism in Lebanon. I don't know where it is. Salafism in Lebanon. By the way, it's a required reading even in the American bureaucracy. Listen, the first of the Salafi jihadis that belonged to Ahmad al-Julani, they were trained in Ain al-Hilwi camp by, the Salafist. You have a number of Salafists, really there, and they are radical Salafists. So to answer your question, as a matter of fact, the Lebanese government is facing challenges, and I don't know, and I don't think it's going to be a kind of a paradigm for other country to emulate. I have my doubts, and based on what I know, the Lebanese government would like to have an easy solution, and they would like to wait for other countries to come up with the plans, to go ahead and find a solution for the refugees, Palestinian refugees in Lebanon.
No, 100%. And of course, this is all perpetuated by UNRWA and company, which is, of course, promotes the narrative of the statelessness that goes on and the entitlement. And this is all part of the story that we're all aware of. So, Alex, on to you before we go to the audience.
Sure. Thank you. A very comprehensive, rapid tour of the scene and many of its different aspects. I want to zoom out just a little bit. And my question is, it's sort of an old one. Is there enough of a Lebanese national identity, consciousness, concept, vision that can unite Sunni, Shia, Druze, Christians, all of the sects in all of the different parts of Lebanon after all of the last 40 years of very difficult history?
Thank you, Alice. It's a very good question. And based, of course, on my interaction with Lebanon and others, within and without, the territory there, I think today, and especially, listen, let me tell you just in certain stages, the Sunni really were the main one who really hold, up high the Palestinian question. It was their platform, it was their slogan, and I remember, when I was little, how they were, because I served, in Lebanon. So now the Sunni, especially after the civil war, they said, listen, we need Lebanon first. So the Sunni now, broadly speaking, and here I'm excluding the Salafists and the Islamists. Let's not forget, you have Salafists there and you have the Islamists. The Islamists are the Islamic association. Probably they don't have a lot of followers, but they have a good social infrastructure, especially in the north of Lebanon and certain parts of Lebanon. So mainly, broadly speaking, the Sunni, they came to the realization, listen, we need to follow first Lebanon. So from that first Lebanon, they came to the realization, what are we going to do? We have to coexist, but in order to coexist, we cannot anymore support any outside causes. The first cause should be the Lebanese cause for the stability of Lebanon. The Druze, as a matter of fact, and whether Kamal Jumblat or Walid Jumblat, they are really the main power. And Walid now, Jumblat, he's really one of the main, leader in the Druze community. He, again, as a matter of fact, he shifted. He is against Israel. He believes Israel is an occupying power. He believes that a lot of harm has done to the Palestinian. He still supports that. But also at the same time, he's the one who is calling also for Hezbollah to disarm. So again, you have a shift now. Also, you have certain disparity in the outlook of the foreign policy, but he really feels that Lebanon should take care of itself. From this perspective now, I think that the Druze, the Sunni, and the majority of Christian, they really now are behind first Lebanon. Now, Hezbollah and something really, with Hezbollah, and I would say, let me say what they call it in Arabic, be it Hezbollah or the environment of Hezbollah. They still believe they are the one who liberated Lebanon. They still believe, they are the one who paid, the blood for saving Lebanon from Israeli occupation. They believe that they are still playing this role. And somehow, their ideology, which is merely an Iranian ideology. I'm not saying they are not Lebanese, but their aspiration, their outlook is totally different. And based on what they are saying today, Alex, basically, like Raad say, he say, listen, you are asking us to give up our weapons. Go and tile the ocean. روحوا بلط البحر. Really, and this is something what they said. So mainly, this is where again you have a serious disparity, really serious division in the outlook of Lebanon. But still they believe and they know that they are in a position where their coexistence with the other confession, because I mentioned to you, Druze, Sunni, and Christian, now today, broadly speaking, they have a consensus of, listen, we need one army, we need a policy only to save Lebanon, which is first Lebanon. So from that perspective, I say, listen, that unity of purpose, which really at the heart of the national identity of Lebanon, is still weak. It's better than before. It's way better than before now. Let's not forget that. It's way better than before, but it's still inadequate, incomplete without the Shia mainly as a confession, as a complete sect to come and believe again, in first Lebanon, mainly stabilize Lebanon. Only the army in the hands of the authorities of Lebanon. The decision of war and peace with the Lebanese government. They cannot hijack, they cannot control, they cannot occupy, they cannot do anything without the consensus of the others. And the consensus should be mainly grounded in Lebanese authority, in Lebanese hands, mainly the governmental hands.
Great. Alex, I'm going to go to the audience if that's okay.
Very good.
Great. We'll come back, at the end. But Suzanne, why don't you take us to some of our folks in the audience, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, we have some excellent questions here. The first question that we're going to pose is from Larry Simpson, Professor Larry Simpson, and he asks, is there a Lebanese leader or a combination of leaders who can fill the role of Ben Gurion and disarm Hezbollah?
Thank you for this question. You put me on the spot now, because whatever I say, I'm going to be really already, it's going to be hell against me in Lebanon. And now, it's going to be more hellish for me. Well, I can tell you this. I cannot see now a leader like Bashir Gemayel, who really said, listen, one Lebanon, one army for all, and I see some leader, Jaja, Samir Jaja, and others, but somehow I don't see them. They are going to have a full or mostly full or total support from the Lebanese population. They would have enough support, good support, and probably the Lebanese forces is going to win in the forthcoming election, good number of seats in the parliament. But still, I don't see a leader that will rally all Lebanese like Bashir Gemayel did. But this is my hope now. I look and I see a two-person in Lebanon, the president, Joseph Aoun, and the prime minister, Nawaf Salam. I think this duo, or those two leaders, if they work together and they have the determination, which is really supported now by most Lebanese, they can work together as a team, and they can, bring about changes, radical changes in Lebanon, especially first and foremost, going ahead and trying and disarming Hezbollah despite the challenges. So I don't see one leader. No, I see two leaders and hopefully three leaders. They'll go ahead and take on this responsibility, and, they follow Ben Gurion lead.
Excellent. Great answer. Okay, the next question we're going to ask is from Dr. Robert Lloyd, and he writes, Lebanon strikes me more as a failed state that is seeking to reconstitute. Israel, by contrast, knew as it began that to divide was to be defeated. What do you think the odds are of Hezbollah being defeated?
All right. Well, as a matter of fact, when you say failed state, I say it's a farm. So I don't know which is worse and which is better, a failed state or a farm, really. Now, Hezbollah defeated. I can tell you the dynamics now in Lebanon, really. Let me put it flat out. Historically, as a matter of fact, the Lebanese army has not taken a stand when it comes to two sects or communities from different backgrounds fighting each other. Listen, we have the experience of 1958, where Fuad Shihab, as a matter of fact, Silson, I'm not going to be involved, where the Nasirit and their allies really went against Camille Shamroun and the government of Lebanon when it supported the Eisenhower Doctrine. Then in the 1970s, and I lived it from age 14 on. I left Lebanon when I was 22 and a half. And as I mentioned, I served on most front line, in the capacity of the head of the chief of emergency for the Red Cross in East Beirut. Here I can tell you this: the Lebanese army, it was active, but it was not united, really. And recently, especially, when you had the attack in the north of Lebanon, when Al-Qaeda really took over a refugee camp, a Palestinian refugee camp north of Lebanon, this is when United States started to go ahead and train the Lebanese armed forces, equip them, not with offensive weapons, but defensive weapons. I really think that, if the president of Lebanon and the prime minister of Lebanon really remain steadfast in their decision, you don't need to defeat Hezbollah. You put pressure on Hezbollah, really, to go ahead and along this pressure, you are going to have from the other community, like I mentioned, Jumblat, like other from the Shia community. You have people who are quiet in the Shia community, but they are not happy with Hezbollah. And especially you have different, those Sunni from Beirut. If they go ahead and they support the army and they would say, listen, what are you doing? We are going to face you. I think that, Hezbollah might, and this is what I'm hoping for, might go ahead without a fight that needs to defeat Hezbollah. And mainly, why I mainly go around the word defeat, mainly because many Lebanese, including the Lebanese army, is worried about the civil strife. And based, as a matter of fact, let me go and quote someone I know who was a former Mossad official, as a matter of fact, the one who handled the Lebanese file in Lebanon, and I interviewed him, and I had a long talk with him based on the article, which hopefully it's going to be published in Asmiya Journal. This is what his perspective is. His perspective is that, listen, if you have a war, a sectarian war in Lebanon, yes, you might have, the some armed forces. Why? Because after 2005 and before 2005, you have a good number of officers now, they are Shia, and you have a good number of rank and file, they are Shia. There is a possibility that those might withdraw, and if they withdraw, either they can join Hezbollah or stay, non-aligned. But being non-aligned, this will give more power, as a matter of fact, for Hezbollah to fight the Lebanese armed forces, and thus probably the Lebanese armed forces, it will make some strides, but not enough to defeat Hezbollah. This is a concern. And this is to answer the question. My opinion is, I say, listen, it's a Ben Gurion moment. You have the Lebanese armed forces. The Americans are behind you. You take the decision. And I hope they will do as Begin did. Begin at the time, he was on the ship. And he said, listen, he told his people after they lost, I think, 16 Irgun fighter, if I'm not mistaken, told, listen, I'm not going to raise a hand on a brother. So I hope that Hezbollah, when it comes to this point, will take this decision. If they don't take this decision, I am for, listen, Lebanese government has to go step by step and do its job. And its job is to disarm Hezbollah. If that means defeat of Hezbollah, then let it be.
Well said. Okay, so our next question here is from Professor James Muller at the University of Alaska. And he writes, for many decades, the Syrians considered Lebanon as part of their own country. How can Lebanon's independence from Syria be achieved?
Well, as a matter of fact, thank you for this question, because I lived it myself and my family lived it, Listen, under Assad really, and still today, you have really no demarcation, no delineation of the border between Syria and Lebanon. And this has affected, again, the delineation of the land border between Israel and Lebanon when it comes to Sheb'a Farm and other areas. So mainly, yes, but you have now a new government. And I think that Aoun has met with Al-Shara, and the Prime Minister, Nawaf, has met with him, I believe, in the Gulf. And you have now discussion. And Al-Shara, let me say tentatively, because I don't know, because I have my concerns about him, a former Salafi jihadi, and turn around and he became a Democrat. So really, I have to really to see, let his action now verify his volte-face. Now, regarding those talks, and I am aware of them, indeed, Syria and Lebanon, they would like to come to a term where they will delineate the border, and more so, as a matter of fact, to work on preventing smuggling, including weapons and including Captagon. Really, you have another issue now with drugs. Let's not forget the Assad regime and Hezbollah, they built an empire in Qusair on the border of Lebanon, to produce, millions of opioids and to disseminate and to sell throughout the world. So here now you have an interest from both countries, which I did not see before, to go ahead and delineate the border and work, as a matter of fact, on certain matters that behooves the national interest of both countries. So from this perspective, I think now the chances of delineating the border are way higher than ever before.
Great. Okay. All right, our next question is from Dr. Neil Rogachevsky, and he writes, what, in your view, is the right way to conceive of the American and European roles, perhaps especially the French, in disarming the militias and ensuring stability? And do you think constructive American/European engagement is likely? Perhaps you could comment on the twists and turns in current American diplomatic efforts.
Okay, I can tell you this. France has played a role in the founding of Lebanon, really, really. And France has been considered, historically as Lebanon, la mère du Liban, the mother of Lebanon. But France today, really, it has to take care of its own problem, its own domestic politics. So yes, they are involved in Lebanon. But myself now, as someone who is aware of what's going on in Lebanon, France cannot play the role it played before, mainly, before independence and after independence. It can't play that role, period. Listen, it can't play that role. And the EU, as a matter of fact, they can help Lebanon with construction. They can help Lebanon mainly, through institutional reforms. They can help Lebanon mainly in helping, what to do with the refugees, because you have a lot of the organization, whether Syrian or Palestinian, what to do with them. And, so mainly they can help, but mainly the main help I see, man, only one country. And behind that country, another country. I think the countries that could play a role, a decisive role, is United States. And I believe that United States is trying to play that role. United States, I know from my meeting, as a matter of fact, where I'm invited to good number of forums, about the Lebanese armed forces, within the bureaucracy of United States, especially the Pentagon. Really, you have support for the Lebanese armed forces. And again, the Lebanese armed forces for United States is, again, important for giving, as a matter of fact, intelligence information to the United States forces. So from this perspective, as a matter of fact, I think that the American will, the American determination, American support, and of course, American, I wouldn't say diktat, but I would say Americans, plan. Listen, we are going to support you if you support yourself. We are going to help you if you can help yourself. If you are not going to do that, don't rely on our support and don't come to ask us. And more so, we are going to put sanctions on you. So this is where I think now the main countries that will help Lebanon to go ahead and stand on its feet and move away from its farm, environment, it's United States. And this is my opinion, and I say it bluntly. So I respect all the Europeans. I wish all the Europeans the best. But the first countries that, and the only countries that can help support Lebanon is United States. Of course, I said that after Israel, as a matter of fact, dealt a severe blow, to Hezbollah. So really, again, Israel has played a role. Now that role, to continue that role, support Lebanon, and to move away from the failed state or from the farm, is one and only country, and is United States.
Thank you. Yeah, we had a similar question, so I think that was a good answer. But the next question I have here is from Grace Eid, and she writes, although Hezbollah has been weakened in recent years, to what extent does it still maintain influence and control over the Lebanese government? Furthermore, in practical terms, how can the Lebanese government realistically address the sensitive issue of Hezbollah's disarmament while simultaneously dealing with urgent national challenges such as refugee crisis, economic collapse, identity crisis, the pursuit of justice for the Beirut port explosion, and many others? And then she writes, I just question how much it's actually capable of taking advantage of this opportunity.
Grace is my PhD student. I'm her supervisor, so she didn't leave a question. She didn't put in. Listen. The main thing, first and foremost, now, and this is where United States and the European role is going to come, to disarm Hezbollah. And I mentioned it. Listen, it's a Ben Gurion moment. Really, let me put it, and I'm sorry to say it, here, according to what Eva Sarkis, mainly when I first came to United States, used to tell me that either shit or get off the pot. And I'm sorry to say that, in this blunt language. So really, they have a decision to make, and this will decide the future of the country, period. Once you decide the future of the country, United States said, I'm going to be behind you. Europe said, it's going to be behind you. The Gulf, let's forget the Gulf. The Saudis, they said, listen, we are going to help you, but we are not going to help you if you are going to have Hezbollah. So this sensitivity about Hezbollah, this sensitivity, I'm going to upset them probably, I shouldn't do that in the name of coexistence, al-Aish al-Mushtarak. That means you are not going to go nowhere. You are going to be in the farm. You're going to stay in the farm with the shits all over you. Really. And I say it although, and let me say in a very blunt way, and I'm sorry to say that, sometimes they live in shit and they don't smell the shit. Really, this is, in colloquial Lebanese, Grace. Really. So the point is, take a decision. You have the Gulf now, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and other countries. They are ready to help you. They are ready to come back to Lebanon. They are ready back to invest in Lebanon. But they need stability. They need peace. They need the government. They need the rule of law. How are you going to do that without disarming Hezbollah and without Iran, saying, oh, listen, I have to do something, or I come up with something, an ideology? No. They have to follow Lebanon first, and then things will come after. Now, regarding the port explosion, again, this is where the country, the president and the prime minister and the cabinet and the speaker of the house, they have, as a matter of fact, a responsibility to find out who is behind it and not to block. And I know Hezbollah is blocking here and blocking way, but the point is, if they have the will, they can do that. But first and foremost, you have to have the political will to do the right thing. And this is where many Lebanese, including you, as a matter of fact, you are waiting to see that. Now, do I worry they are not going to be up to the task? Yes, I am worried. But my job is telling them, and I am an American citizen now. I'm not planning to live in Lebanon. My family came to the States in the 19th century. So yes, my heritage is Lebanese. I love Lebanon. But again, I want Lebanon to be a stable, successful, prosperous country in peace with all its neighbors, including with Israel. This is mainly my dream in the future. I would like to have breakfast in Tripoli, lunch in Beirut, and I would like to dine in Tel Aviv and dance in Tel Aviv. This is my future. So mainly you have a lot of decision to be taken, and it has to be taken with balls. And they have to do that. No half-hearted measures. Oh no, is this for a coexistence? Or this is for this, and this for that. And the first thing is disarm Hezbollah. Have the support from the Gulf country. Have the support from the United States. Really. And then go to the economy. Mainly the Europeans and many other countries said, listen, we are going to help you. And they will come to help. But you have to help yourself so they can help you. So the point is here, is help yourself first and foremost, and all the help is going to be behind you. Israel is going to withdraw. Israel, as I showed you, it doesn't have design in Lebanon. From 1949, they withdrew. In 2000, they withdrew. In May 17 agreements, they told them, listen, Quraysh Field, as a matter of fact, Quraysh Field now, which is in Lebanon, according to the maps that I saw myself, it was part in Lebanon under the May 17 agreement. So really, what they are waiting for the Lebanese, they have to really stand up for their country, first and foremost, and things come back after.
Wonderful, Robert. Well, I mean, I think I know we're short on time, so I really want to thank you for taking the time, for giving us a phenomenal, comprehensive, rapid analysis of where we are now, where we started, and where we're going. And obviously, there's a lot to discuss. And so I really want to thank you for your time and sharing your insights this afternoon. As I mentioned to everybody before, Robert is going to be with us at our conference during the first week of November, November 1st to the 3rd. We'd love to see all of you there. If you want to hear more about Lebanon, Syria, And in general, this is the place to be. And Robert will be diving more into all of this. So this is just a teaser of what you might hear in Washington in person. And there's a lot to discuss, and things are changing and evolving daily, if not hourly. And so there's something that we can tackle. As I said before, the other thing, I want to thank my colleagues for joining me as always, Suzanne, Alex, and Emily. I want to thank the audience as always for joining us. I know there were other questions we did not get to, and I apologize for that. Feel free to email us after the webinar, and we'll do our best to respond in a timely fashion. But Robert, thanks again for everything, and I look forward to seeing you in Washington.
Same here, and I thank you, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be with you. And thanks to Emily and the rest of the staff, of Asmiya. It's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you. Thank you.
Have a good day, everybody.
And I look forward to seeing you. Thank you. Bye-bye.